She was very active.
Was Grace Batsie was she a kicker?
If I remember correctly, yes.
Mm-hmm.
She was. Both my girls had the hiccups in utero all the time.
Oh.
Which is a funny feeling.
I bet. Welcome to Bitter Coffee. I am Kelly Coffee.
And I'm Margo Batsie.
Margo Batsie, good morning.
Good morning, Kelly. How are you?
You know what? Not going to lie. And this is usually one of those things that is a pet peeve of mine.
Mm-hmm.
The clock went ahead an hour, which in and of itself annoys the hell out of me because there's no reason for it.
Right. We should just stick with one time.
Right.
Like all year.
Don't they do that in Arizona?
They do. The good people of Arizona, my parents. Now I'm 3 hours from them again. And that's annoying.
Okay.
3 hours is a much easier time to navigate, like calling and whatnot.
Right. Doesn't Texas, or is it, aren't there certain points of maybe Indiana? Maybe they don't.
I think that there's certain places in maybe Indiana or Iowa that don't.
Right.
Clocks. The whole state of Arizona, they actually call it Arizona time.
Oh.
They're just, sometimes they're mountain, sometimes they're Pacific. I don't know. It's all based off of an agrarian society. So we still do, thank goodness, have farmers out there in our country farming, but the rest of us could just, live on one time frame, I think.
I'd be okay with it.
Yeah. So it was hard for you. Was it hard for Poppy? Because Henry gets up this time a year.
He kind of follows my schedule.
Oh, okay.
But I could tell that when I got up this morning, he was ready to go. He had an agenda. He had some things that he needed to get out of the way. And I don't know, I think all day. And here's what's really screwing me up. So from where I'm sitting, I can see the clock on my stove.
And it's wrong.
It's correct.
Oh.
It's the clock above my stove. You know that red clock on my wall?
That's not fixed yet.
Nope. And it's off by, which is even more annoying, it's off by an hour and 2 minutes. Like, I don't.
Yeah. I was just thinking at work, I'm going to have to run around tomorrow morning fixing all the wall clocks.
Right.
And some of them are high up in the air. So.
Oh, all right. That's going to be
I might have someone else do that this year. I won't climb on a desk to do it again.
Again, she says.
Well, last year I did. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's good that you have a plan going into this. I feel good.
So it's daylight savings.
Yeah.
And
it's snowing. Well. It was snowing earlier.
I know.
Ridiculous. Do you guys still have snow in the ground in Jericho?
We do. Our snowpack is gone, but with the last snow over the last couple of nights, it's snow covered again. Okay.
Ours was gone yesterday, and now it's kind of back today, but I think it'll be gone by noon.
Yeah. We had a good amount on the ground. So last week that pretty much melted away for the most part. But we still have it. In some parts of my yard is very shaded. And so it takes a while for those snowbanks to go.
Right. And you have turkey mating season in your backyard.
Correct.
Actively occurring. The boy turkeys and the girl turkeys, they're kind of hanging out in squads.
Yeah. And they the other night I pulled in and we pulled down to our garage and I crossed paths with 14 girl turkeys, but there wasn't a guy to be seen anywhere. So I don't know where the girls were going.
Girls' night out.
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
A little DNO up in here. So yeah, but they don't like the car. They don't like people. So they ran the minute they saw me.
Oh, they didn't slow down. Girl, you know what I mean?
The
You better.
deer in my neighborhood, they don't mind people or the car. They'll just stare you down.
Right. And then what do you have to do? You just have to wait in your car until one of you decides to give up and give in?
Sometimes I'm like, go, go. And I roll down my window and I yell at them.
Okay. Get out of here. Right.
Well, if they're blocking my path.
Right. You can't. Yeah. No, that makes sense. I have some good news regarding wildlife in my neighborhood.
Tell me.
The rooster's back.
Oh, is it good or is it not?
I think it's really funny.
Where was he for the winter?
I'm assuming Florida, but now that some of the travel restrictions have been lifted.
Okay, he came back.
Yeah. And I think I've only heard roosters crow in like cartoons or in movies where it just feels different. I think this rooster is either just being true to himself or really dramatic. Because it's more like a scream.
Right.
Like it doesn't feel like a cock-a-doodle-doo. That's what they say, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is more like an, oh my God, you know.
I think every rooster has their own signature take on that situation. But
okay.
I don't know.
But he's back. I heard him this morning.
Oh.
And I'm assuming that he's back full time. And because I leave for work pretty early, I only hear him on the weekends. So I heard him this morning.
Oh, okay.
And he was ready to go. Not a really good state of affairs when I'm getting up before roosters.
No, it's not.
No. So
very early.
Yeah. So he's back. I guess we have to give him a name.
I'll think about it. But.
Yeah. And hey, anybody who's listening, if you want to send an email to bittercoffeepod@gmail.com. Yeah, let's have like a name a rooster contest. And Michelle has been thinking about getting another dog since Molly died back in November. However, she's really gravitating toward the half-dead squirrels that seem to just hang out in our yard. I don't know if this is just like a Winooski thing or a Chittenden County thing or a Vermont thing or just our backyard thing. But we have a lot of really banged up squirrels in our yard. And there's a rough winter. It's been a really rough winter. And one has like this big injury on his or her shoulder.
Aww.
And doesn't have any fur left on their tail. And then kind of like drags one of their paws when they climb up the tree.
Sad.
I know.
Well, Winooski. I mean, it's hard for people and squirrels alike.
It is. It's not the glamorous city that some people take it to be. So,
it is the onion city.
Goddamn right it is. So Michelle's new hobby for now, instead of getting a dog, is to stare out the window at the injured squirrels and offer some form of first aid, but from afar.
Okay.
So I think part of the reason is, I don't know who has tried to adopt a dog in the past. You walk into a place, you give them money, and they hand you an animal of your choosing.
No more. There's a lot of paperwork.
It's crazy.
Periods.
There's a lot of, we don't have anything right now.
We'll
and
out.
Michelle I'm sorry?
Like they often say like, oh, we know what you're looking for. So we'll let you know when something comes in.
It's nuts.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. So I think that's a little bit frustrating for her. And injured squirrels, they're plentiful in our backyard. There's no shortage. We get the occasional bunny.
Oh,
which is pretty cute. But sometimes they get a little bit aggressive and they startle me a little bit because usually bunnies like run away.
Yeah.
Not Winooski bunnies.
Again.
Onion City.
Yeah.
Yeah. So today, a couple things going on today, first and foremost,
Grace Batsie's birthday.
happy birthday, Grace Batsie. How old is Grace this year?
15.
But like in like a 36-year-old's, with like a 36-year-old's brain.
Basically, some days. Yeah, I mean, she's 15. My tiny baby is 15. It's crazy town. But yeah, she's good.
And it's weird that like you're what, like 29, 30? Like in
I
your
just
head?
said to her, I was like, it's so strange because I'm like 27.
Right. She's catching right up to you.
12. I was like, oh, right. And not to mention, I have an almost 21-year-old. So,
right.
But yeah, 12 noon on March 14th, Grace came into the world.
High noon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, happy birthday, Grace. And
we had a very celebratory breakfast, as we always do in the Batsie household on
awesome.
Birthday. So we had some French toast and bacon.
Is it too early to FaceTime or Zoom with Mary in Colorado? Yeah, right?
Yeah, she's actually, I don't exactly know where she is, but yeah, it's too early wherever she is. So I think they were doing a camping trip in the wilderness somewhere. I don't know.
Okay. But she's in the country somewhere.
Yeah,
she's somewhere in the lower 48.
Different time zone. So no, we'll FaceTime with her later.
Okay.
But she was with us last year on Grace's birthday because we had just entered into lockdown. She was home from college. So.
Oh, right.
Or we're entering into lockdown in Vermont, I think. So.
I think I want to say, and because I've talked to you all week, I've been thinking about like how we're coming up on a year that we've been in a pandemic, but I think it's a year ago this week that Vermont started shutting down. And I don't want to sound like a jerk, but I think, yes, I know what a pandemic is, but it didn't impact me. I think Governor Scott declared a state of emergency. I think it was like a year ago yesterday or a year ago today, somewhere around there. That's when things started to get like a little, this hits a little bit too close to home. And restaurants were closed. And I was furloughed from my job, and Michelle was in New Hampshire at the time. And I know this sounds really cliche, but I think I'm not alone when I say like my entire life changed literally overnight.
Oh, it did?
Yeah. And I went to work one day and I came back the next, and then I did not have to go to work anymore. So yeah, it threw me for quite the loop. And I remember there was one day I was sitting here in my house, and that's when it kind of hit me that, oh my God, like I'm isolated. This is what it feels like. There was such a feeling of not being able to do anything and not being able to go anywhere to kind of distract from what I was feeling.
Right.
And I think now that we're coming up on a year, well, I guess it's a year today or whatever, this week, I keep on thinking about it's been a year and we're still in this. And I didn't think that 12 months later, we would just be at the point where we are now, where people are starting to get vaccinated and things are starting to open up, notably some places in some areas way too soon. And just as a disclaimer, if you guys are thinking that this is going to be a funny show, probably not.
Yeah. Feels important to talk about this though at this point after a year. Yeah.
It feels a little dark, but I think that, I don't know, I can't not acknowledge it, if that makes sense. So I was, again, I don't want to sound fancy by saying like, I read an article in the Times, but I read an article in the Times recently, and they asked 75 artists 7 questions about the pandemic. And I've changed them a little bit, but I thought it was a really great idea. Okay. And so I have 7 questions. I don't know if we're going to get to all 7 of them because I don't know how dark either one of us wants to get.
Right.
Especially on Grace Batsie's birthday. Gotta keep it light. So I will bounce around some of these, and if for some reason you don't want to answer them, you can just say pass. That's all. All right, I'm going to jump right in. So my first question is, what have you maybe learn how to speak, Kelly Coffey? What have you turned to for sanity during the pandemic.
Literally didn't hear a word you said.
Show's over.
Oh, internet, stop being unstable, please.
So I'm going to ask you some of these questions, and I don't know if you cut out, or if I cut out rather, before I said if you don't want to answer it, then you can just say pass.
Okay, I heard that part.
All right. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, what have you turned to for sanity during the pandemic?
That's really intelligent, Margo. Start every question with I think you and I have talked about this. I feel like certain people in my life, I've been conscious about showing up for them because they're showing up for me. So that has saved my sanity in many ways, you being one of them. Really turning and letting go of some feeling that what we're doing is weird or wrong has saved my sanity in some ways. Like, it's okay just to be home for a whole day, and I don't have to be running around like a crazy person all the time. And so that has helped save my sanity in some ways. Netflix.
Yeah.
Hulu,
yeah.
every streaming service under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I've watched a tremendous amount of TV, which has always been something that I do to relax. So that wasn't like a big new thing. I'm not a gal who's like, I never watch TV. I don't know what you speak of.
Right. I don't even own a television. Shut up.
I own many and all kinds of devices to stream
Right.
it on. So there you have it. Those are things. I do think one thing, and again, we've talked about this before, but in the beginning, I definitely was drinking too much wine every night, and had to stop that just for myself. I just knew that wasn't something that was going to be a coping mechanism for me that was going to work.
Right.
So
And I think, and I don't want to speak for anybody else, but I think a lot of people, myself included, kind of did the same thing, because it was like, oh, we're just like hanging out on the phone, having a glass of wine. And you and I have had discussions about how the whole like mom wine thing is kind of annoying. And there's like coffee mugs with like mommy's morning wine coffee, whatever. Yeah. Mom juice. Yeah. So yeah, that kind of makes sense. Makes a lot of sense. I too have kind of really turned to television to entertain me, or more to distract me. And we've agreed that we've watched basically everything.
Literally, there's nothing left.
There's nothing left.
I know.
Like there's maybe, I don't know, there's Saved by the Bell, which I'm not gonna fall down that rabbit hole. I can't.
Yeah, I haven't watched that new season yet.
No, I haven't watched the old ones.
I mean, I'm like doing a deep dive into early 90s BBC shows. I mean, which is crazy town, because the camera work and the picture quality are a step below this Zoom call. So
Does their sound cut out a lot?
sometimes it does.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they come into a room and everything's fuzzy.
See?
I'm like, did they not have the they not able to do that moving shot in 1990?
Probably not.
Yeah, I guess not. So
I have
internet.
I'm sorry?
That's where I'm at in the internet. So
Okay. I've started rewatching seasons of The Real World. And I think it started out as something that I was just doing kind of recreationally.
Right.
And I would say to myself, like, well, I can stop watching this episode or this series or this season at any time. Yeah, turns out I cannot. Right. And I blame, well, first and foremost, I blame myself, sure. But I also blame Paramount Plus, because they make seasons of The Real World, with the exception of seasons 5, 13, and 14, for whatever reason. I'm going to research that later.
Yeah.
They make the ability to watch entire seasons of The Real World. It's a binge. That's what it is.
Yeah. They
make it so incredibly easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's accessible. It's right there. It's effortless. So yeah, I could have a little bit more self-control.
And I shouldn't judge, because Grace and I watched Parks and Rec for the first time early on in the pandemic. Grace rewatched with me, but I think we watched that whole series in a couple weeks. I mean, it was fast. And Netflix would be like, because I think at the time we were still watching on Netflix. This is even before Peacock came out. But Netflix was like, do you want to watch another episode? And I was like, God damn right I do.
Yeah.
Like, why are you judging Netflix just because I've watched 6?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know my life. You don't know what I have going on.
They have no idea.
No. And like, we're also like Leslie and Ben's wedding. So stop it.
Are you sure? Are you still watching? It's that kind of tone.
Judgy. Mm-hmm. It was more of a 2019 look to be like, are you still watching? Because the minute we slipped into 2020,
now they'd probably say, you're still watching this, right?
Yeah. And it's okay. We have your back. Thanks for watching Netflix.
Yeah. I still haven't gotten through the rest of The Crown.
A lot of people have a hard time with some of those slower seasons in the middle.
I'm on season 3.
Yeah.
And it's moving at a glacial pace. It's not going anywhere.
Well, you got to hang on because 4 is amazing.
I know. You have to get through season 3 to get to season 4. And
although, I loved every minute of 2 and 3. Every minute. I know it was slow, but again, I'm rewatching 90s BBC shows. So there you have it. This is my genre.
Yeah, you are steeped in British culture.
Weird.
Yeah.
Really weird.
Yeah. Where does that come from?
I don't know. My Scottish forefathers would be very disappointed in me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're not wrong.
Like they would, I don't know. Do I wear the orange? I don't know. There's something like with the British and it's not good. I don't know.
There's like a purple and an orange, kind of like Northern Ireland and Southern Ireland. There's an orange and
I think Scotland. I don't know, but it's not good. Whatever it is, I'm doing something wrong. Although I did start watching a show yesterday. 2 Scottish guys from Outlander travel around Scotland, just doing Scottish things.
Is that the title?
I think it's Men in Kilts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shorter title. All right. I will say that you had given me the heads up on a documentary that Netflix or Hulu released on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I watched Kid 90. I did. I watched the hell out of it yesterday. Oh my God. Good. Oh my God.
I told you.
This could be a whole show. So
everyone needs to run, not walk to Kid 90 and watch it.
And if you don't have a Hulu subscription, send me an email.
I'll give you my password.
Yeah, I'll do the same thing. Mm-hmm. I'll pay for a month of Hulu.
Get the free month. Cancel when you're done.
Maybe we'll make that the squirrel naming contest. If we choose your squirrel name, then we'll pay for Hulu for, I don't know, like a year, whatever. We'll figure it out, or maybe it's like a month. I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll see. I think this is all negotiable. I think everything is still on the table.
So you loved it, right?
It disturbed me and took me to a place I have never been. Mm-hmm. So for me to say that I enjoyed it feels really wrong. It's kind of like when you and I both did DV work and people would say like, oh, that's an interesting field. You can't say like, yeah, I really enjoy it.
No.
Right?
Even though I did, but people would take it wrong. So yeah. No, I get it.
You know what I mean?
I do.
It was insane. I mean, I really want to talk about this, but I don't want to give away anything.
I would just say everyone needs to watch it. It's especially if you're like our age, if you live through the 90s with some consciousness.
It's insane.
She was an it girl, right?
She absolutely was an it girl. And I didn't know that.
Nobody knew.
Until yesterday. How old were you? I was years old when I realized that Soleil Moon Frye was an it girl, but not in the really annoying Paris Hilton kind of way.
Because this is exactly the point, that this was all before that. So as they talk about so eloquently on this documentary, they had no concept or context of the whole world knowing everything that you're doing. They didn't. They were famous. They all were famous, but they still were just living a private life for the most part that she was documenting.
Yeah, there was no, oh, what is she going to do with that? She's walking around with a camcorder. What is she going to do with that? Like that's where it started and stopped. She documented this, and she not only documented this using a camcorder, she kept diaries, and she kept like every answering machine message. I mean, I don't know. It really affected me in a way that I wasn't prepared for, despite your warning that this isn't some like playful little romp through the 80s and 90s. This was really, it was very, very tough to watch.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad that I watched it.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Do you want to move on to another question?
Yes.
Okay. Let me see. Okay, here's a good one that's probably not so dark. If you knew you'd be isolated for so long, what would you have done anything differently?
I think that I would have, well, it's tricky. Like if I would have had a heads up that it was coming, I would have done some things differently. Like I would have seen my parents.
Right.
Maybe would have had them come here for a period of time. I think for me, that's been one of the most difficult things. Not that my mom and dad were ever here every day, but that we always had it in the back of our minds that if we needed to get to each other, we could. And then all of a sudden we couldn't. And
right.
that was a weird sort of realization.
Yeah. I think all those things that, speaking for myself, that I took for granted, being able to like go to a friend's house or go out to dinner or, travel. Not that I travel extensively at all, but just having that option to just, get out of town for a weekend or whatever. That must have been more difficult for you because you're very close with your parents, and God forbid something happened, you wouldn't be able to get there. They wouldn't be able to get here. I mean, I think that really goes beyond isolation. That just, I don't know. I don't know if there's a word for it.
Well, that's why they're moving here.
Because
we realized that we were not okay with what happened in the past year.
Yeah.
That it was not a plan that we felt comfortable with anymore.
Right. I think that makes a lot of sense.
So, yeah.
I think the one thing, and as introverted as I am definitely like, I hug people. To not have the ability to hug someone just feels really weird. It's very, very strange. And here's something that I was thinking about just recently. And this just, for me, it just kind of puts a timestamp on how long we've been in this thing. The last time that I hugged someone other than my wife was when you and Derek and Morgan were here.
Oh my God.
To record an episode of the podcast. That was like the end of January, I think. Isn't that weird? It's insane for me to think that, because I think sometimes this pandemic feels like it's been going on for 10 years. And other times for me, it feels like it's been, I don't know, maybe 2 months.
A minute.
Yeah. So when I think of it in those terms, that's very strange for me.
The time is weird too for me because, and certainly we all have our own experiences, and where so many people just were home, didn't go anywhere, even for work. My life never really changed in that way. I never stopped going to work every day.
Right.
And so it felt very strange that the whole world was not moving, and every morning I was still driving into the office. And I think in some ways that's made it feel longer and shorter at the same time.
Yeah, it's weird for sure. When I started screening at the hospital. So as some of you know, I was furloughed and then I took a job as a screener. I remember there were mornings when I was leaving work. So I was working like 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. during the week and then like weird hours on the weekends. When I would leave in the morning, there were no cars on the road at 5 o'clock in the morning, which is kind of normal sometimes around here. But when I would leave work to come home at 9 o'clock in the morning, there were a couple of weeks where I was the only car on the road. Mm-hmm. And that freaked me out. Like, and I mean, you talk about a sense of isolation, like there wasn't even that human interaction, like, oh, somebody passing in a car. There was nobody walking around. There was nobody driving around. And that, I don't know, things got very strange for me very quickly when I realized that there were a lot of people that I don't want to sound dramatic, but there were a lot of people that I thought were my friends. Mm-hmm. And it turns out they really weren't.
Right.
Or they weren't friends in the way, like, I don't think that the friendship wasn't reciprocal. And not to put you on the spot, but you are one of maybe, I'd say less than 5 people. I'll say 3 without really thinking about it. But you, first and foremost, you checked in with me every single day.
Yeah.
And yeah, we talk on the phone every day. But I think, did that start during the pandemic or were we doing that?
No, I think it did. I mean, maybe we were doing it a little bit, but I don't think it was like with the regularity that we have been doing for the past year.
Right. I want to say that it started like right around the time that everything shut down. And yeah. I didn't realize it at the time, but like you were checking in to make sure that I was okay.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously we've talked about this, but you know, I mean, Michelle was gone. You were by yourself in your house.
Yeah. She didn't have the ability to, I mean, she was only in New Hampshire. It wasn't like she was in like Uganda,
but running home.
No. And where she was staying at the time, her brother was renovating a hotel. So there were a couple of weeks when they first moved into the space where she didn't even have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So we would have like these kind of choppy conversations. It was kind of like she was in Jericho and I was in Winooski.
Right.
You know, the sound would cut out. But, and then it was just basically texting back and forth. And there wasn't really anything to talk about other than, wow, this is really weird. And
well, and I think that that's an interesting statement because I think that that's why so many people dropped out of other people's lives because there wasn't much fun left. There wasn't like light things to check in about, you know, it wasn't, oh my God, did you see this hilarious thing? Or, oh, la, la, la. It wasn't for a while. And you know, no one was making plans to like meet up after work for drinks or like go to dinner or let's go see a movie. So it was just like people just dropped by the wayside. No, I don't think it's judgy, and I don't hear like, oh, I never can speak to those people again. It's just, I think it's a season of our lives that.
Yeah.
Didn't.
No. And with a couple of people that I spoke to kind of, you know, rather frequently, it kind of surprised me because they weren't necessarily people that I spoke to on a regular basis prior to this. Right. So I don't know. It helped me to put my friendships in perspective, and it helped me to realize like, and this happens for everybody, I guess, like what's important and what's not. Mm-hmm. And me being somebody who it's going to be a shock to a lot of people, but sometimes I'm really stubborn and I don't like to see things from another perspective. But it forced me to do that because I didn't have another option, and it was no longer me just thinking this way because this is how I think. I really was trying to, and I think I've succeeded to some extent, to look at things from another person's perspective, because everybody was kind of handling this, and everybody is still kind of walking through this pandemic in a way that feels good for them. And it might not align with what I need or what I want or what I expect. But
right.
I have to believe that I'm probably doing that same thing to another person.
Well, and I think you just hit the nail on the head right there, is that I think we all had a moment to stop and think, we're all really just trying to do the best we can in the moment. And some moments for some people are just really hard and they're not doing it well. I also feel like in some ways the pandemic has pulled back the curtain on that folks are talking about being authentic and being real. And even on Instagram, even influencers are saying, like, doing posts of like real life. Like, this is what it really looks like when I shoot those beautiful shots. You know, my kids are upside down and, you know, someone's puked on my shoulder or, you know, and it feels a little bit more authentic, which I appreciate. As a person who pre-pandemic was trying to be as authentic as possible in most of my interactions, it feels good.
I think we're kind of forced to now.
Yeah.
I just turned that light down a little bit on purpose. You're not having any kind of event or seizure, nothing neurological going on that I'm aware of.
Okay. You know,
I don't know. Just seemed a little aggressive. Let me see.
Throw another question. What else?
All right. What is one thing you made or created or started this year?
Well, anyone who reads my bio on the Bitter Coffee website knows I'm a process crafter. So I start a whole lot. I always finish things.
So do you want to focus on what you started?
Oh, I've started all sorts of things. I actually have never needle pointed before, like with wool on a needlepoint canvas. And I'm almost done with one that I started. It's this cool antlers that are going to go up in our house because this has been the year of the deer in our house. So,
okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm fairly crafty. So I feel like I always kind of pick up and put down crafts, but I feel like I've done more crafting this year than probably normal.
Fair enough. I moved my container of yarn and crochet needles from one part of a shelf in my storage area to another. So that feels like that's progress for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You're on a podcast, not to put your point on it, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So this, I mean, speaking this.
So you have needlepoint antlers and podcast.
Mm-hmm.
That's a full year.
Yeah. And some cross-stitchy things. And
yep. I earned my bachelor's degree.
You did.
That was kind of like my pandemic project.
And got into grad school.
Yeah, I guess I could consider that something that I started or okay. I mean, I don't start until the fall.
Right. But you started the process. You applied.
It was not an easy process. I'm just going to throw that out there. However, the pandemic has afforded me the opportunity to finish my degree because as a screener, those of you that might be screeners know that there's a lot of downtime.
Right.
Especially when there's nobody coming into or coming out of the building. You've got nothing but time. So I was able to draft my essay that UNH required and submit it. And I'm not going to say that I wouldn't have done it if we weren't in the middle of a global crisis, but here we are. I think it just gave me that little push that I needed. Like you need to do something. And there's something that Michelle always says to me, if I'm like bored or if I'm like singing too loudly off key because I have nothing else to do, she'll just say, you need a project. And she said that to me at one point over the summer. You need a project because although I did work for, I'd say, 80, 90% of the pandemic, I took like a month or two off.
Yeah, I was gonna say you did a lot of backyard hammock time.
Mm-hmm. I put a lot of miles on that hammock, and I plan to do the same this year.
Correct.
But, probably not weeks and weeks and weeks at a time.
But maybe now, like, I could come over and be in your yard with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're allowed. You're totally allowed.
Right.
And it's funny that you should mention that. I was thinking, and I wanted to bring it up this morning before we started recording. I think we might be able to go back in the studio.
Yeah, I think so too. Dan was just saying that to Grace this morning at breakfast, like, hey, you can have like a friend over again. So, I mean, it's okay for households to be, at one at a time, households together at this point.
Mm-hmm. And was Grace on board with that, or is there still some?
She's like, oh, okay, yeah, we'll see. So
I'm hesitant to. Well, I'm always hesitant to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And a friend had asked me if I was ready to travel. Not that we had any kind of plan to do anything, but it was just out of curiosity. And I think that still makes me a little bit nervous.
Yeah.
I think that we're still too much in it for me, just because I've been vaccinated, to say, like, I'm going to go and do this thing.
I think, again, this is one of those things that has become crystal clear for me in the pandemic. Everyone's got to measure their risk for themselves, which is hard because obviously we know that our decisions impact other people.
Yeah.
I'm not really excited to jump on an airplane right this minute, but I think I'm getting pretty close.
I think by the fall, I'll feel better about it. Right when classes start up again.
Sure.
And I won't have any time to do anything. So that works itself out.
We have a trip planned for August.
Oh, nice. Where are you going?
Well, I mean, maybe if it's safe, or safe enough, Jamaica.
I don't see you as like a go to Jamaica kind of gal.
So
I learned so much about you every single time I talk to you, Margo Batsie.
I know. It's for his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
So Dan's going to be 50 in August, and we went to Bermuda for his 40th. So we were talking about what we were going to do, and he's like, I really, really want to go to this one specific resort in Jamaica. It seems perfect for a kind of exiting out of the pandemic kind of resort.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has their own bungalow. So it's not like you're going through hallways in a hotel and eating in a common dining room. We can eat at our bungalow. It's right on the lagoon, so we can swim there.
Sounds perfect.
Right from our dock.
Man.
So, and I mean, if we said we were going to go to Jamaica today, we would just, there are safe ways to do it. I mean, they are open for tourism at this point, but I think that things are going to be changing on our side of things as we go forward too. So
it sounds kind of perfect. And I think if anybody deserves a vacation, not saying that you don't.
My husband does for sure.
It's Dan Batsie.
Yeah,
in my mind, he single-handedly got Vermont through the pandemic.
I think he would correct you in saying that it was a huge team effort, but he was a piece of that team effort.
This is just my view, and this is...
I know.
I want to think that way as I walk through the world.
His team has been amazing, and they all deserve a huge rest.
Kelly Doherty too, right?
Kelly. I know.
Shout out to Kelly Doherty.
I know. Our former boss and leader now works with Dan, which again, small world.
Vermont's a small town.
I know.
Say it all the time.
Yeah, they all deserve a huge rest. And I think that, part of the reason 10 years ago we went to Bermuda was because, pandemic or not, Dan is a guy who always gets up every morning, does a little bit of work every day. And at that time, we literally arrived in Bermuda and we didn't have cell service. So we did it when we were like at Wi-Fi and things like that. But we just like put our phones in the safe every morning. And, obviously the folks who were with our kids knew how to reach us at the resort. And, there was plans made, but we were just on vacation. It was crazy.
What you might not want to do, and my wife can speak to this way more directly than I can. Maybe not get your hair braided.
Right. No, I think that's something I can sidestep pretty easly. I think I'll leave that to Michelle to answer for that decision.
Yeah.
No, I'm good.
So Michelle went to a wedding in Jamaica and decided, and I'm going back, I want to say like 15, 20 years. And she decided that she was just going to kind of jump in with both feet. And somebody asked her if she wanted her hair braided into cornrows. And she did. And, the beads were really loud. And she was, dancing at a wedding. And she said that the most painful part was when she was on the plane on the way home and all the beads were still in her hair. Like she couldn't get comfortable. Like the beads hurt her head when she sat back on the headrest. And I sent you a pic of her in her braids, right?
Sure, she's really thankful for that picture exists.
She was there. She was there when I took the pic. So I didn't do anything behind her back. She was right there. So, I mean, and Dan, he keeps his hair pretty short, right?
Pretty high and tight. So I think he's good.
Yeah. So one less decision that you have to make when you're on vacation, which is great.
Exactly. I'm definitely a gal who wants to go on vacation and make zero decisions.
Right. Yeah.
Like I want to like walk in and be like, sure, I'll have coffee.
Yes, I would like some pancakes. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, those are the biggest issues. But like, I don't even want to decide like where are we going to go eat?
Nope.
I want to go someplace with minimal options. So
I think that's the best option. That's what a vacation should be. I think. And then you need to like come home for a couple of days and not go back to work. Like come home on like a Thursday and then kind of go back to work that Monday. You want a couple of days at home for sure.
I'm hoping that at that time I'll be able to take, maybe 10 days off. So like part of it will be vacation and part of it will be at home.
Fair enough. I think everybody should have 2 weeks off, but
yeah.
Who am I?
No. I agree. I just think there's going to be a few other times I'm going to need a long weekend over the summer. So I try to only take 2 weeks total off over the summer.
All right. I have one more question.
Okay.
Is there a particular moment from the past 12 months you'll never forget, good or bad?
I think there's been a couple of moments around both of the girls, but more specifically Mary not being able to go back to school. That was pretty concrete. And I remember when her school, she came home for spring break and then they were basically told not to go back to campus after spring break. All of her stuff was at school. So that's pretty clear in my brain. Then when she made her decision not to go back to school in the fall, that was more of a series of conversations. It wasn't exactly like, I'm not going back to school, case closed. We kind of talked it through as things looked like it wasn't going to open up in the way that we thought it was going to. Actually, the one thing around Grace would be everything closed down a few days before Grace was supposed to perform her 8th grade musical.
Oh, that's a bummer.
And so that never happened. They did sort of pivot and do a vocal. So they taped the whole thing via Zoom or recorded the whole thing via Zoom. So we listened to like a radio show version. So it wasn't the acting, but we heard all the dialogue and the songs. But that was pretty hard. They had practice. I mean, it literally was probably supposed to be, it was supposed to be a week after everything closed down.
Yeah, that sucks. And I think a lot of people, like, things that they, what word am I looking for? Not expected, but things that they had kind of worked for and, wanted something in exchange for that. Like Mary finishing up her first year of college. Like, you come home and you relax and maybe work over the summer and then you go back. Or, being told that you can't go back there. Like, I can't imagine how that must have felt. And, for Grace, she worked really hard on this musical, and then to not have, like, hey, you guys, look what I did. There was no graduation for me,
right,
which was odd. And I'm not saying that that's a big part of it, but it kind of is, like, you kind of factor that
degree, and there wasn't even anything,
No, I got it in the mail. It was just this
after 27 phone calls.
Yeah. Some of them heated. Yes. The one thing that I remember when I finally realized, oh my God, this is kind of a big deal, is when Michelle and I went to the grocery store. And this was like I want to say like the first week in March. And it was right before she left for New Hampshire. So she wasn't really sure like what she should bring, what she should keep at the house. But the parking lot was packed at 7:00 in the morning at the grocery store. And there was nothing left on the shelves. I remember having a conversation with a woman it's like the bakery section of the grocery store. I can't remember. I don't think I was wearing a mask yet. I don't think anybody was wearing a mask yet.
Probably not.
I think Michelle might have been wearing a gaiter. There are a few people that I saw around the store that had their faces kind of covered up. And there was a woman in the bakery section that, because me, I ask people how they're doing. They're going to tell me.
Right.
And I asked this woman who was standing next to me, hey, how you doing? For whatever reason. I don't even know why. And she told me, and she said, this is going to be going on for a long time. This isn't something that's going to be over in a couple of weeks. And to be honest, I didn't think she was right.
Right.
So I don't know who this person is, but lady that I met in the bakery a year and a week ago, you were absolutely correct.
Yeah.
So I think we've exhausted the whole pandemic topic.
I feel exhausted.
I need to go lie down.
I do too.
But I think it was important to kind of talk this through a little bit. And for those of you that were looking for something lighthearted and funny, sorry, couldn't deliver that this week. On the next show, I have a whole thing that I need some help walking through regarding Billie Eilish. Oh, I have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of concerns. I have a lot of opinions. And there's a documentary on Apple TV, and I think I can't remember the title of it, but it's a documentary on Billie Eilish. And knowing nothing about her, I watched this doc and it frustrated the hell out of me for many, many reasons, none of which I'll get into now because I want you to watch it first.
Okay, I will. I looked at it, but it's like 2 hours long.
It's not a short little romp through like her most recent concert.
I'm going to need some time.
Yeah. And I would say maybe not watch it all at once. I had to get up at one point and take a break.
Okay.
So I'd like to thank our sponsors. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank the Polarity Foundation because I always forget to thank the Polarity Foundation. So thank you to the Polarity Foundation, whose generous grant make this show possible. And Doggy Styles, I want to say hi to Joanne, Casey, Emma, and Miranda. And you can give Doggy Styles Dog Grooming a call at 802-654-7387. They're located at 925 Roosevelt Highway in Colchester. And I also want to thank Things for Things. This is Amanda Jones's kind of new venture. Nice. She does woodworking. She makes these beautiful cutting boards. And she makes dog leashes out of retired climbing rope.
Cool.
Yeah. So she has this whole like wood shop, and her website is Things for Things Co. No, I'm lying. No, thingsforthings.co. And her email address is thingsforthingsco@gmail.com.
Okay.
And she is Boulder, Colorado based.
Mm-hmm.
And you could reach her, especially with the new time that we're in now. Factor that in if you're going to give her a call. She is reachable at 610-733-9158. And once again, happy birthday to Miss Grace Batsie. Our intro and outro music is Spirits Unlimited by Static in Verona. Thanks very much for listening, you guys, and we will see you next time. Take care.
Bye.